Sharks in the pool, that is not cool. I need the tools, take me to school. Feet first into this league, me first, that cannot be. Under the underdog, Monica G. Feeling a whole lot better suddenly. I get in with it, winning again. You're 1 and 2 in the bag, and I'm going for 3. That is the beat down. God of the best, so I keep. Now, y'all treading water for weeks. Now I'm the shark, so I eat. Now, look, I am not sorry. I understood the pump from which I started. And navigating these drafts is cathartic. So, thanks for the invite to party, yeah. Dynasty underdog bite down. Up at the day and the night. Now, easy as flying a kite. Now, come take a look at it right now. Dynasty underdog bite down. Up at the day and the night. Now, easy as flying a kite. Now, come take a look at it right now.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 154, Dynasty Underdog. I'm your host, Uri Dawkins. With me tonight, Billy B-Man. What's up?
Not much, man. Excited we got a fun episode. Get to teach people how to educate their league mates and some fun stuff like that. So that's some stuff we don't always talk about. Popped up in the Discord, so that'll be fun.
Yeah, shout out to the Discord. They gave us basically half this episode for the most part. So
Yep.
Let's get after it. Let's hop into some news and nonsense. Breaking news today. Jordan Addison was cited for driving 140 miles per hour in his sweet Lambo. Now, reports are that he wasn't drunk or anything, but this is you don't want to see this from your rookies.
No, not at all. Yeah, like I said, I think both in the Dynasty Underdog Discord and the DFF one, I'm like, I don't think he's gonna miss any time. So if for some reason you're going to get like a slight discount, then sure, take your shot, I guess. But yeah, I think it's a nothing burger in terms of like actual, actionable anything, because I don't think anything's going to really happen. But yeah, you got to keep your eye on Jordan Addison, because that's just poor decision making, right? That just goes to his decision making, and for a young guy like that, rookie, you just don't want to see it.
Like most interesting part about the whole thing was the way that Twitter reacted, because it was just some kind of like a beat reporter, no blue check mark or anything like that. He had said it and it got tweeted by a bigger account, and everyone was like hopped in his mentions like, "Where's your source, bro? Where's your source?" And like just went after him, right? Like they didn't think it was true. And it was a couple hours later, like 2 hours later, it came out, that it was true.
Your favorite rookie couldn't have done anything wrong.
Mm-hmm.
No way.
Yeah.
No way.
People just want to be first, like, source, bro. Trust me, man. It's like, give him a shot. You never know. Sometimes the little guys have the info, right? So
yeah, and yeah, just on Jordan Addison, it's kind of crazy because he was going that fast. Henry Ruggs was going a similar speed. Yeah. Only difference was he didn't. Jordan Addison didn't hit anybody. So yeah, that you just got to be really careful with that whole situation. And again, I'm not saying I wouldn't sell him. I wouldn't, and that has nothing to do with his dynasty value. There's nothing actionable there, but it's just more as a player of Dynasty, you got to keep your eye on that kind of stuff and make sure that he's not doing other, even if minor off the field stuff that becomes a trend, right? Because those things, that's definitely possible. You just want to keep an eye on that.
Absolutely. All right, next one. Finally, DeAndre Hopkins, the watch is over, and he went to, like, in my opinion, one of the worst places he could have possibly gone, and he went to Tennessee. I feel a lot better if Tannehill's the quarterback.
Sure.
Which I think is the plan, but I would have liked to have seen him go somewhere, I don't know, with a more prolific offense, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you'd rather see him in Buffalo or KC or maybe even the Patriots because it's more traditional, but not even more traditional, but it's more, there's probably going to be there would be more pass attempts for DeAndre Hopkins specifically. In this offense, you have King Henry. I mean, Ramondre Stevenson's great, but he's no Derrick Henry. So, yeah, I get what you're saying, but I was kind of looking at this, and I don't think I've done the projections on them yet, but I wouldn't have gotten this in there even if I did. One way or another, I think that it's possible for both DeAndre Hopkins and Treylon Burks to have 20% target shares. Obviously, you're thinking D-Hop probably closer to 25. I think that Burks can still, if he's who we think he is, maintain around a 20%. Now, with the pass attempts in this offense, that still may not be much, but I think it could be better than we're kind of thinking if the offense gets right. I mean, just a couple of years ago, we saw, with Corey Davis and A.J. Brown with Tannehill, like if Tannehill's healthy all year, he could put it together, especially if they get right and D-Hop, like it could be a little bit better than we're thinking. It might not be great, obviously. It's not going to be what we want, but especially for Dynasty, I'm not Like, I would take this as an opportunity to buy Treylon Burks. If you believe in him, the talent should, like, he shouldn't, him succeeding is not going to be dependent on whether DHop was there or not there, in my opinion, right? And long term, we don't think DeAndre Hopkins is going to be DeAndre Hopkins for another 3 years, right? He's probably for another year, 2 years, maybe at most, and then probably not even with the team anymore. So you hope Burks takes over. That's the idea, at least in my mind. That's kind of how I see the whole situation. How do you feel about DeAndre Hopkins, though, in the whole time?
We've talked about him quite a bit ever since he left Arizona. And the low-hanging fruit is to go ahead and compare Julio. We talked about Julio Jones, right? And how he was doing it and doing it, went to another team. And he happened to go to the Titans and didn't do a damn thing. So hopefully DHop is not Julio. But it's really easy to draw those comparisons because we just did it last week and look where he ended up. So, I just, I hope Tannehill's healthy for a full 16, 17 games, and then I'm not that worried about it. But I just would have liked to go somewhere where I think there's more targets. I just don't think there's that many more targets in that offense because, well, King Henry.
If you had DeAndre Hopkins, what would you sell him for right now? Like, top of the market, if you had your choice, if you were putting on the trade bait, what are you putting on trade bait if you're gonna auto accept?
High second
for Hopkins. Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. I wonder if you could sell him for a first, because that's obviously any first, late first contend the best contender that has like an open flex spot. Target that guy and try to get his first probably is the move.
You might be able to do that.
Yeah.
I think he's probably, because of the landing spot and how fickle we are, he might be cheaper now than he was last week. Possibly.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I think I'd buy him for a second if I was a contender with an open, an open hole. I think he could definitely fill that spot. I'd be betting on that. So I think I'd spend a second.
Cool. Next one, Saquon and Jacobs, no new contract. I guess we kind of assume that they're both probably not going to participate in team activities. We talked about this last week, but now it's real.
Yeah.
Any thoughts that we didn't cover last week? Just are you interested in any of these guys' backups?
I like Zamir White a little bit, just because there's not really much else behind Josh Jacobs in Vegas there, but I guess you could say the same thing about what's his name. I'm trying to grab his name.
Okay.
Yes. Why can't I think of his first name? But the backup to Barkley. There's nobody there either. Is it Eric Gray? Eric Gray?
Yeah, something like that.
I think so. So those two guys. Like, I just think I like Zamir White better because he's I just like Zamir White better. He's a second-year player. He's just kind of a bigger body, like just more of a traditional back. I think that they would kind of use if Jacobs wasn't there. That said, you know how it goes with the backups that aren't super quality. They'll probably just have a committee. So I'm not super excited about either of them. I think Jacobs probably has the better chance of just playing. Barkley is talking up a real big game. So he seems like he might take a seat if they don't pay him.
Wouldn't be very smart of him, but yeah. It
wouldn't, but he could still do it. Like, it wasn't smart of Melvin Gordon to do it, 5 years ago or whenever he did that, and he did it anyway. So it could always happen.
Yeah. All right. Another one, Kendra Miller, rookie for the Saints, is on PUP. Now, with the new rules, he could be on PUP during this time of year. He could come off at any time, as long as he's not on PUP at the start of week 1. Tomorrow he could be off. But are you concerned? All I'm thinking is this is another smash situation for Jamal Williams. But
yeah, and if Alvin Kamara escapes his suspension or a long one at that, then yeah, I think for both of those guys, it turns into kind of what we've seen before with Kamara, Mark Ingram type style backfield. But I think that's what they want to do anyway. If Kendra Miller fits one of those molds. That said, I don't really think he's that guy. And also, if he's going to come in kind of injured through training camp and not able to kind of get a leg up, he's gonna come in behind. You know what that does for rookies. So that could be terrible for him. He really needs to get on the field and get in there and start putting some work in. Honestly, like that. Just with the talent that's in the backfield. Not that they're like young or anything. Obviously, he's super young and could take over, but with the rookies, man, you want to see them get going early. So, yeah. Man.
We see it way more often, especially with guys who aren't like higher drafted. If they're not 100% healthy to start week one, like very rarely are we seeing good fantasy producers down the road. I mean, like Rashad Bateman's one. Like I know you never were really high on him, but I was very, very high on him. But he came in injured and just hasn't done anything. So
yeah,
go ahead.
No. I mean, I just think, I don't think that it's very unlikely that he's on the PUP list start week one or whatever it is. So I don't think he's going to miss time like that. But behind the 8 ball, if you're not out there in training camp and everything, he's not going to get as much playing time early in the season, obviously.
Good point. Oh, next one. Breece Hall. Breece Hall's on PUP. Kind of not surprised. Just, taking it easy. I know that Robert Saleh said in an interview that their GPS tracked him doing 23 miles an hour, which is scooting. He probably wasn't in pads or anything, but that's scooting. But apparently, he's still not quite ready to take on contact and things like that, which I guess is probably just smart for the team to do that. But are you concerned at all?
No, this is expected, right? Like he's coming off a major injury. They're going to be super cautious with him, and as they should be. So, yeah, not worried about this at all. I do have a quick segue, just real quick detour.
That's what we do here.
Yeah, of course. Talking still about Breece Hall, but I think I was having this conversation with Paul on the factory tour 2 weeks ago when I was on with him. And I think we were actually before we started recording. It was a fun conversation. We were talking about Scott Fishbowl, and I was talking about taking Jahmyr Gibbs over Breece Hall this year, right? And he was like, don't you think that like Breece Hall has more upside, if not this? And I'm just like, so I'm just wondering your thoughts on this. Like with the injury, everything, like, he's going to be put on PUP early and he's going to play week one most likely. Like, do you think Breece Hall has more upside still than a Jahmyr Gibbs even this year?
Probably not this year. I really expect Breece Hall to start slow. That's just kind of what happens. Even if he's good to go, he's probably not going to be 100%, and that's just normal, right? And Jahmyr doesn't really have that. I think they have a plan for Jahmyr, and I prefer the 100% healthy running back to start the year off. Like if it takes 6 weeks for Breece to get to 100%, then yeah, I think I just want Gibbs there. I want a guy who's going to be healthy, scoring me points every week, to get there. It might be nice to have like a resurgence of Bryce or Breece, later in the season, like at the back end of the season, to push you into the playoffs and get you a good playoff run. But you still got to score points to get there, and I think that Jahmyr Gibbs is going to get you there. So,
yeah, no, I mean, I think they're both great, and they're both going to provide similar points per game when they're playing. And maybe Breece Hall, fully healthy Breece Hall probably does have more upside, given that he's gonna be more of a workhorse in terms of rush attempts, right? But if we look at Jahmyr Gibbs and say, he's going to have 120-ish, maybe somewhere between that and 150 rush attempts, and he's going to catch 60 balls, and he's an efficient player, then he's going to be every bit the player you want, and may have more upside on a weekly basis, just kind of, with the boom games that he can give you. Not that Breece can't, but just coming back, I don't think he's going to have that explosiveness this year. And I thought it was just an interesting conversation because clearly some people think that Breece is just going to come back and smash. And I guess maybe this is me with the risk averse behavior, not believing, that can happen, not wanting to put my eggs in that basket. But I don't know. I feel like time and time again, and yeah, I guess with the uber elite talents like Adrian Peterson, you see them come back, but time and time again, I feel like, you see these guys come back and it takes a couple weeks to get going.
Yeah. All right. Last one here is from the Discord. Buddy from Safe League Scarborough came over, joined our Discord. He joined TU3, goes by Textbook in the Discord, which is a cool name. But he had a general question, doing a rookie draft, but you're still going on. That's kind of cool. He said, I thought I had a plan, but no. But now overthinking, I have picks 1, 2, and 5 for the situation. I was originally going to take Bijan and Richardson. It is super flex, and my quarterbacks are Lawrence, Fields, and Ritter. Now I'm wondering if it's smarter to take Bijan and Gibbs, then the remaining quarterback out of the 3 at pick 5. Or would you stand and take Bijan and Richardson, then maybe Gibbs falls to 5? Good question.
Yeah, this was a good question. And I think I was late, a little bit late to the conversation, or I let everybody kind of say their piece. But I'm pretty sure what I ended up saying was, I just think you should kind of go for the quarterback in this situation, right? You shouldn't avoid the quarterback because you have a positional need, right? If Anthony Richardson hits, and already I think he was kind of, believing, he was swaying, going maybe Anthony Richardson. So you have some belief in him at all. If you have some belief in him at all, like any of these players, you want that immense upside that he offers, right? So I think that, you draft him, and post draft, with the hype you're already seeing, like I just saw something come out yesterday saying how, the coaches are talking about how accurate he is, how great of an arm he has deep, how his head's on right and he's working hard and the whole 9. You keep seeing that, and that snowballs over the offseason. You're going to have a really, really valuable asset that you could probably trade for one of those running backs plus, or a different running back plus, something that is, much you can get a lot more value than you could have in the rookie draft by just taking Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan. So I think the fact that he has options there, it kind of makes you think almost it's like the American problem. You have too many options, right? It's like you don't want, it's almost like you just want to, like, if you had one pick, you would do Anthony Richardson. So I think he ended up going Anthony Richardson, but for me in Superflex, I think you probably would say something similar, is you really don't want to avoid those top tier potential elite quarterbacks.
I agree with everything you said there. One thing that stood out was like, okay, what if you only had the 102?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to take Anthony Richardson there just because, right? So the only reason you have the question is because you have that 5 too, and you're just wondering. And you might get lucky. Gibbs might fall to 5. I doubt it. But yeah, go ahead and take the quarterback who has a ton of upside. I still am not a true believer, but he has a ton of upside. If he hits at all, it's a smash. That dude is going to just vault in value, an insane amount. So I would have done the exact same thing. I would have went Bijan, Anthony Richardson at 2, and then see what happens with my 5th pick. Maybe even with the 5th pick, trade back from 5 to like 7 and pick up something extra and grab a wide receiver.
Yep.
That's probably what I would have done.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Get your
then
wide
you're
receiver.
Loading up on a rookie running back, rookie quarterback, rookie wide receiver. That's a good way to kind of keep your roster fresh.
Yeah, balance it out. And also, it's just, you can buy running. We talk about this. You can buy running backs almost at any time. May as well wait towards the beginning of the season when you're really sure about kind of the roles and responsibilities and what you're kind of going after and what you're getting in return, right? So you keep hearing about Tank Bigsby this whole time, and you buy Travis Etienne right now, you might not be that happy come start a training camp or week 1. So you may as well just kind of wait as long as you can as a running back buyer, at least in the offseason.
Yeah. One thing we didn't talk about, just because you're a Patriot, I won't talk about. So let's talk about Leonard Fournette's backup, Ramondre Stevenson.
That's a good one. Yeah.
I know. Does this say anything about any of the running backs that are on the team, or they're just doing their due diligence?
No. I think it's more that, Ramondre Stevenson down the stretch last year was really beat up and banged up, and he just couldn't do it. And that doesn't mean he's not a workhorse. That means that he pretty much was the entire offense. Like if you look at the volume he received, both in the passing game and in the rushing game, he was everything to the team.
Yeah.
Which isn't sustainable. So I think Leonard Fournette would be a really good backup option to go in there on, off downs after Ramondre has gone through, 5-6 straight plays. You want to throw in Leonard Fournette. He can handle pass down work. He can definitely block. He can do whatever you really want him to do. He can handle short yard situations. And if he's not going to be a workhorse, a lion's share kind of guy, then he probably can stay healthy. So I think the idea would be you get in there. It would be a Damian Harris, but one that plays more of a role that Ramondre plays, which kind of sucks because I've heard people say that they would kind of not play. I think they do play similar roles, in my opinion, though, obviously they're bringing him in to keep Ramondre fresh for the the high value opportunities, right?
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. So one way or another, like I'm not so worried about Ramondre necessarily. I am absolutely worried if they bring him in about my Pierre Strong shares and all that stuff. Cause and I've heard people say, well, those are different roles too. No, they're not. Absolutely not. Like they bring him in there because they don't trust those other guys and they need a veteran to handle the majority of whatever backup opportunities there are. So, I said a lot there. You take what you want from it.
Cool. All right. So this is also from the Discord. Just kind of, how do you educate your league mates who can't grasp dynasty value? Now, I think this is a question because it all stems from getting really imbalanced offers in your inbox from other league mates.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like, if you know it's a guy who's been playing dynasty for a few years, like that's just one of those things you just ignore it because you're just getting bad offers. But if you know this is like a newer dynasty player, they just honestly might not be familiar with dynasty value. How do you go about, without being a dick, how do you go about helping them just kind of see the light?
Yeah. Honestly, I think one of the only ways to do it, because if you've played for long enough, you've kind of built your own values. You can't really tell somebody like, this is how much somebody, you know what I mean? Because at some level it is, opinionated. It's subjective. Like there's a lot of ways to view value. We talked about this last week. Obviously,
We sure
there's
did.
a lot of ways to kind of build your values. But I think the best, so in that way, you can't just tell, your friend or league mate who sends over like a terrible offer, like, yo, like this isn't even close. Like this guy is ranked this way, this guy's ranked this way. Like who is making,
who's ranking
these decisions, who's ranking, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think the best way is to go to a calculator, right? Because if you play long enough, you probably have access to one. You could probably find a free one and just, create the trade in there and send it over and be like, hey, this is what I use sometimes. Put yourself kind of in it, so it's not just them. Just be like, hey, like this really helped me out when I first started. And even if it's not somebody who first started, this really helps me gauge kind of values before I send offers. Like this is what I use. Like check out what it says about this offer that you just sent me. It says it's really lopsided. Now, obviously, and you can explain, obviously this isn't the end all be all, but this is something that a lot of people use. It builds off average draft position. It builds off rankings. It's a market value tool. You can go to Keep Trade Cut, do the same thing and explain that. But I think at one way or another, you have to somehow bang into their heads that there is at least a market value that they can work from, whether they're higher or lower on it. They need to not be so high or so low, from that middle kind of bar that is the market value. That's kind of how I view it, right? I go and look at that market value as kind of the average value out there. And then I obviously know that whoever my opponent is and I'm sending an offer to, they might be higher or lower on this player, but I'm going to try to stay somewhere within that range, but make it in my favor based on my values of that player. And I think that's how you have to do it. Too often the trade offers you're getting aren't taking into account the market value whatsoever, and they're just going wild in their direction of what they think of the players and what they want on their team.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I first started playing, and I didn't use a calculator for quite a while. But once I did, I think it really helped me to understand, okay, this is, because you don't really know. You don't understand, like, there's the huge value in age and just all sorts of things. Going from redraft to dynasty is kind of a big deal when it comes to player evaluations, player value. And we talk about all the time, like redraft, you're trying to score points, but the dynasty community is still going to hold similar production. A player who's a little bit younger, or maybe just on a better team, a little bit higher value. And I think that newer dynasty players don't see that. So having the calculator could really kind of help you train to trade better. So I agree with you. I think it really is kind of the only way, just to say, hey, this is the community, tens of thousands of people drafting and trading, and this is kind of where these players end up value-wise, and just show it to them and let them know, hey, it's got to be kind of close. Otherwise, it's, going to get rejected right away. So.
Yeah, and neither one of us are saying that the calculators are something you should be a slave to or something that you should use every time or whatever. No. It's not that. It's a tool, especially for newer players to to get their bearings, gain their bearings on kind of what the market is for different assets, right? I think there is one other way to kind of gauge dynasty value, and especially when it comes to picks, because those are the hardest ones sometimes, right? Like when people first start playing, the question is always like, how do you value future picks? I think one of the best ways to do it, if you have your own rankings, right? Or if you have somebody's rankings who you really trust, right? Because if you're doing this, I'm sure you have somebody's rankings who you like. If you have that, and if they already don't have, the rookie picks in there, just go ahead through the list of rankings and ask yourself, where would I value a first round pick compared to a player, right? I think it's a really good way to kind of gauge like how you would value a first round pick, right? Because you go down there and you say, obviously you have to have some idea of future, the future rookie class. So, kind of what you're buying into a little bit. But if you just look back to even, the last rookie class, you can kind of think to yourself, like, where would I have picked these players within the range of the veterans, and I think it's a good way at least to kind of look at what a pick would be, what a first round pick would be to you. It's not I don't think it's the cleanest way to do it, but I do think that it's a way to do it because a lot of rankings don't have that in it. And like, they're totally missing the mark, right? Like you need to have that in there.
Yeah. Or you could look at, startup ADP this time of year and look at, like the first 6 or 7 drafted rookie players this year based on ADP and rookie drafts and see where they're going in startup ADP. And then you can kind of see, okay, this guy was drafted 103 in the rookie draft. Where's he at in startup ADP right now? And look at the guys kind of within, 10 picks or so of him. And you're like, okay, well then, Treylon Burks is probably worth, early to mid first, so stuff like that. I think
no, you absolutely nailed it. That's the better way to do it, is definitely look at the past rookie class, where they're at in startup ADP. And right there you can gauge, you're like, oh, this is kind of what a first round pick value is in year 2.
Yep.
So you can already kind of project forward, like, okay, so if the really good ones jump up here, this is where I'd value a high first round pick in this area of the current dynasty landscape. So if you just want to go off like what your values are, like obviously you can go to rankings and some of them do have the picks in there. You can go to Keep Trade Cut, has the picks in there. You just kind of need to see where your values fall in terms of, in terms of the players, but you just can't go so far off of what the market value is all the time. Like there are times where, it makes sense to do it, but man, you keep getting those offers and that your league mates are just like, I forgot what the one that they sent to Discord was, but it was like, Breece Hall and Jalen Waddle for Leonard Fournette and like a second. And so, you're like, what, like, this isn't even like, if you're not trolling, like we really need to have a conversation. Like just that you need to be sent over to a trade calculator and start using that before you send me offers.
Yeah. I think that's just that's the kind of the only way, and then you're gonna lose a lot of trades and you have a lot of bumps along the way to learn this dynasty thing.
Yeah.
It's not easy. If it was easy, everyone would be winning. So
exactly. Tell them to hop in the Dynasty Underdog Discord or listen to us. And that's an easy way. That's rule number 1, right? Like that's the easiest way.
We'll help you.
help us help you.
Yes. That should be like our slogan. All right. Rookie ADP risers and fallers. This is fun. What do you got?
Yeah. So I was going to talk like rankings and stuff, but I thought it was a little bit better to talk ADP and just kind of see where some of the rookies have gone since. Just really, I mean, I think where was I looking back to? Maybe like March, April. Since about April is where I was looking. Okay. Just kind of, I was looking at a chart, I was looking at a graph, and it was showing over the months, and I was able to kind of just see some of the guys who climbed and fell. And I just want to talk through a couple of them. There wasn't a ton of them. They've stayed actually pretty steady this year, but there was a few that I think are worth talking about, especially the last couple. But first one to start with, Zach Charbonnet. I thought it was just kind of interesting that since he got drafted to the Seahawks, and we've been, had like a month or 2 to digest it, his ADP has risen over that time on average, like 2 or 3 spots. So he was originally going back in like April, May, and, mocks or just kind of whatever was going on back then. He was going in more of like the 204 area. Now he's more in the 110 area. So I thought it was just worth talking about because I don't know if we've talked about the backfield that much, but just we're talking about kind of why people aren't scared away of him being with Ken Walker and kind of are warming up to him, and if we even think that's right.
I'm a huge Charbonnet guy, so I'm not surprised. Yeah, this is where he should have been drafted. I got a share of him, early second, about a week after the NFL draft. But I mean, they drafted the guy pretty high. They're known to not really care when it comes to running backs there. We've seen it with Rashad Penny. Who am I thinking of? The guy who had the head thing, neck thing, and he's been out.
Chris Carson.
Chris Carson, thank you. And Chris Carson, I think, was drafted the same year or the year before, whatever. And it didn't really matter. Rashad Penny was drafted, very highly. They still went with Chris Carson because Pete Carroll does not care. He wants the best player out there. And there's a reason that Charbonnet's out there. I believe Charbonnet's a better player than Kenneth Walker. I've said this before, and I'll stick to it. I had 2 shares of Kenneth Walker last year, and I got rid of both of them within a week because I just don't really believe in them. So I think Charbonnet is going to get a lot more work than a lot of people think, and I think there are more people who are starting to think that way, and that's why he's moving up a little bit.
It's a hot take. I dig it.
It's kind of a hot take. But
yeah, it's a warm take at least, right?
It's my reality.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's definitely a fair take to think that he could be the better back. I mean, he's definitely a more well-rounded back. Kenneth Walker may be more explosive. Definitely, he was explosive last year. Definitely very dynamic, but he wasn't super efficient on a per touch basis. So they're looking for something there, and I think that we've seen multiple backs, especially very talented backs, can succeed in the same backfield. So I'm kind of with you that we shouldn't be really worried, and I think that it makes sense to kind of warm up to him just because they chose him after having Walker, like you said. You know what I mean? Like
immediately the very next year.
He also has more of the pass catching background coming out of college, so he's going to get those touches as well. He's probably going to get some goal line carries. He's a thick boy. He's not a small guy. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity there for him, and I kind of agree with you, and I'm surprised the market is viewing it similarly. So that is what it seems is happening, and I guess we kind of agree with the market.
Yep.
All right. So Michael Mayer, 2.05 July ADP, lowest since the inception of this ADP I was looking at, which I thought was very interesting, but not surprising, I guess, because I don't think people are in love with the Vegas landing spot. But
that's it.
I kind of am. I think if Jimmy G is healthy, which I think is more likely than not that he's going to at least start the year. I don't know if his foot holds up, but I think he's going to play. If he's healthy and we have, a McDaniels offense, they have Austin Hooper there, but I really like Mayer a lot. So, I'm not saying year one he's going to be super special, but I like him to get utilized as kind of an all-around tight end, which could kick off his career. So, him being valued low looks like an opportunity to me, like it always has been. I actually did get him in the mid-second in a rookie draft a month or so ago. So this is real. And yeah, I mean, I'm not super scared of the landing spot or anything. They take time to develop. I don't know. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing I thought of that stuck out to me was that this was his lowest ADP because if memory serves me correctly, this seems like kind of where he was going anyway.
He was around 201 and he dropped to like 205.
Okay.
So that's from like June to July he dropped. So whether it's people are just like in love with the other rookie tight ends and they're just kind of fading him completely. They're lower on him even now over the last month, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Are you so between him and like Sam Laporta, how do you feel?
I think Laporta's got a better shot at a higher target share year one.
Which is good news which is good. Yeah, I agree with that.
I think I take Laporta over Mayer.
I mean, yeah, straight up, I probably would too, because
I do
I can then
admire
I can
better.
trade him to. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm just very high on Mayer, so
Yeah.
I'm just disappointed in the market.
You're not mad. You're just disappointed.
That's all. I'm just
That's all.
disappointed. Okay,
That's all right.
so I wanted to talk a little bit about Cedric Tillman, not down a bunch, but down 3 spots on average since May to the 209, and I'm just wondering why he's declining in ADP. He's a guy who I feel like has a lot of opportunity in front of him. He only has to beat out really a Donovan Peoples-Jones and Elijah Moore, who haven't been incredible over their careers. Like Elijah Moore obviously had one really good year, but then it kind of fell off while others around him succeeded. So we don't know that he's going to translate over to the Browns, but just wondering why we think Cedric Tillman is diving down.
It's probably because that, Donovan Peoples-Jones pretty underrated. He's been producing for quite a while now. He's a fixture in that offense. You have Amari Cooper there. Elijah Moore's a higher drafted, better player. So for Tillman to get any action, it's not going to happen this year. So he's going to be one of those guys you have to wait. Like he's not going to beat out Donovan Peoples-Jones. He's not going to beat out Elijah Moore. I just can't see that. A mediocre rookie doing that. And I think, maybe that's what other people are thinking too.
Yeah, that's fair. He's still going behind Jalen Hyatt, Jaden Reed, Luke Musgrave, near Zach Evans and Israel Bandakanda. I'd rather have him over most of those players, to be honest. So, yeah, I mean, you're right. It's pretty shady when you get to the 3rd round, I guess, is part of the problem too.
It is.
Yeah, that's part of the issue. Okay, let's dive even deeper. Okay, Puka Nacua. Yeah, we're actually talking about things that matter now. Puka Nacua in Los Angeles, right? He's with the Rams. So Puka Nacua out of BYU. I like him a lot. Big body wide receiver. Nobody else except for like Van Jefferson in front of him, who we like enough, right? And I guess Tutu Atwell's there for sure. But Nakua's getting a lot of buzz in camp, and for some reason he's dropping in value. And I even see this in underdog like best ball drafts. He's nowhere to be found. Like you can have him for free every time. And this is from in Dynasty 4.03 to 4.10 in ADP. So that's confusing to me.
He went from 403 to 410?
Yes, he's declined.
Oh, I kind of read that wrong. Like he should be. I would assume
he should be going the other way.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm gonna look. I'll check right now again because I have it right in front of me. But
pretty good buzz about him. Connection with Stafford there. All reports have been that he.
Oh, sorry, the other way. Sorry, he's gone up. Maybe yeah, you're right. He's gone up to 403.
I was gonna be disappointed too, because I mean, this is a guy. Yeah, I mean, you're getting him one of your last picks in the rookie drafts, the early rookie drafts.
And I wrote it like that too. I don't know why I was confusing both of us. Like, what am I doing?
That's okay.
Anyway, sorry.
We got it handled. But yeah, no, for him to rise from the late 4th to the early 4th just makes absolutely good sense. The draft capital and all that stuff, there's a reason why he's going in the 4th and not the 2nd. But there really isn't another player on that team that's like him. Like he would definitely have. He's not Cooper Kupp. He's not Tutu Atwell. He's not Van Jefferson. He's different. Like he could definitely have another role there.
Yep.
Obviously, it's Cooper Kupp's show. Van Jefferson has been spotty, but I think Puka Nacua, I think he'll be out there day one. 3 wide receiver sets, like he'll be there. So I'm not surprised that he's moved up.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
Yeah, and I love that take. The part where you said that he's going to play. He doesn't play the same role as Van Jefferson. Like he has the ability to be more versatile than these guys. Yep. So it's not like he's competing directly with them for every snap. Like he's going. There's potential he works out of the slot and plays kind of like a fair big slot. He's not huge. He's like 6'6". I think he's like 6'1", 6'2". But he could play those different positions. I think and also I think part of it is I know kind of what I'm getting out of Van Jefferson for the most part. Yeah. For the most part, I think he's more of a field stretcher, and Tutu Atwell is definitely that. So if Puka Nacua can be more versatile, he's going to find more playing time. Yeah, and that's the big part of it. So I've been snatching him up everywhere. All right. Last one here. Michael Wilson. Receiver,
Arizona.
Stanford, Arizona. No, well, he came out of Stanford, I think, and he's plays for the Arizona Cardinals. Got picked up by the Cardinals, and there is nobody really there. We just talked about DeAndre Hopkins, right? He's no longer in Arizona. There is Marquise Brown, who is great, but there's nobody else there. And Marquise Brown is not necessarily your traditional number one. Michael Wilson kind of fits more of that prototypical style. So again, kind of plays a different role than the Rondale Moores or anybody else. So he could definitely find himself a role on this team, and he's steady at 311. So I was kind of interested that he hasn't risen up much. And that's kind of what stuck out to me, is that he's kind of just a staple of that back end draft, the back end of the draft. And what it reminds me of, to be honest with you, and I wasn't even super in on this guy, but I remember I got a share of him super late, and it was Terry McLaurin. It just, not that, I mean, I remember Terry McLaurin because I think he came out of Ohio State maybe, or he came out of a really good college, wherever it was. And I was like, why is he not getting any buzz? But it just reminds me of the same, because they both sat in the back end of the draft, like 3-4 turn, and nobody was selecting them. And it never turned, no matter what happened. I mean, Terry McLaurin got the draft capital. Like Michael Wilson got some draft capital, and still nobody wants to pay attention. So I think, we're talking about Cedric Tillman. I'm talking about Cedric Tillman kind of being down. Why is Michael Wilson not way up above Cedric Tillman and the bunch? I think that's kind of what we should be asking ourselves.
I think kind of the same thing for Michael Wilson as Puka Nacua is a lot of it has to do with name familiarity. Michael Wilson is not a name that most analysts were really talking about at all leading up to the rookie draft, and they got drafted by the NFL, and you're like, oh, who's this guy? And so I think there's a lot of that still. I think there's still a lot of uncertainty with the Arizona offense. You're not really sure what's going to happen. Is Kyler Murray going to come back and play this year? Is Clayton Tune going to steal that job?
Your face.
I just think there's a lot of uncertainty with the team, and then also just not a lot of knowledge about Michael Wilson as a player. So you kind of combine those together, and that's what kind of happens. He just kind of sits there.
Yeah, those are all good points. I think that there's opportunity to go ahead and buy some Michael Wilson, to be honest with you, because even though DeAndre Hopkins news, it solidifies that he's not there. It doesn't change anything, and it probably doesn't change anything in a lot of people's minds. They might not even connect the two things at this point. And it's just his value is not changing from such a low spot. I just feel like there's opportunity there if you can get him at current value, nearly a 4th round pick. If you can send, a 2024 third and get him, right? Like, why not? You're pushing that into the future. You're getting a guy who has some opportunity. Yeah, I think that's kind of the way I'd be thinking about it and approaching it.
I like it.
Okay.
Cool. We'll hop into some trades and non-trades.
Yeah, let's do it. All right, so this first one, this first one's mine. Okay, so someone approached me about Geno Smith in a second for CMC, and I was like, I don't know, it doesn't do it for me. And then they were like, how about for Eckler? And I was like, it's kind of the same, like it's very similar. And so I was like, let me throw in Noah Fant. Like I'll do it with that. Get Geno and Noah Fant together. And yeah, so I didn't get it done. I don't know if it's gonna get done, but what do you think about that?
Ben. Yeah, it depends. If you have strong enough running backs that you could get rid of Eckler, I like getting the future second. And if you need quarterback help, Geno's there for at least another year. Noah Fant. I think it's very fair. I think it's a very fair trade. I think if I had extra running backs, I would get out of Eckler for that, and I'd be happy with it. And if I needed a running back, I think I'd give up Geno a second and Fant to get him. Depending on my tight end situation, I might not want to give up Fant because me personally, I'm still a pretty big Fant believer. But I think it's a pretty fair trade.
You're a pretty big fan?
I'm a pretty big fan. I'm a fan of Fant.
Yeah, I mean, Would you trade Eckler for Geno in the second straight up?
I don't know. I don't.
Something missing, right? There's just something
Yeah,
missing.
if I needed a quarterback, you know what I mean? If, say I had like two starters, one was kind of like iffy, then I might do it because I think Geno plays the whole year. I don't think there's any chance that he's getting benched. Like they're going to see what they have with him. So if I did need a quarterback, I think I might do that and get the second on top of it's pretty nice. Eckler, you're going to want to get out on him this year probably anyway. So that's just kind of how I see it.
Awesome. All right, cool. So next one here. I received this offer. I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on this. Kendra Miller, Charlie Kohler, 25 second. I wrote that wrong. 25 second for a 25 first. So Kendra Miller, Charlie Kohler, and 25 second for 25 first. How do you feel about that?
I think Kendra Miller going in like the late first, early second in some of the rookie drafts this year. I think if you get on Kendra Miller, if you're not really a believer, Kohler is kind of whatever. I don't know. For me, I think I'm going to keep my second Kohler and Kendra Miller and see what happens. I'm not really interested in a 25 first right now.
Oof. That's interesting. Yeah, I got this offer and I have the first, and I declined it. I really would just rather have the first.
Okay.
Because I don't really like Kendra Miller, but that's a big part of it, I guess.
That is a big part of it. That's kind of what matters, right?
Yeah. If you
trade for players you want.
Yeah, if you think of Kendra Miller, I guess, as a first round pick this year, then yeah, this is a smash, right? Because then you're getting like a first back in your mind in value plus a second. So it makes sense. But to me, it doesn't. So I guess it was a good one to bring up. I thought you were just gonna be like 25 first, easy. But yeah,
No,
clearly there's a lot. Well, it's a lot closer than I thought. These were both DU trades.
I had like a hard time to like caring about rookie picks 2 years out. But I mean, I think it's essentially we had the Kendra Miller discussion, and it's essentially what Kendra Miller is a second. You have Kohler, so you have what 2 seconds in Kohler for first. Meh, I don't know.
Yeah, first for me. How do you feel about Jonathan Mingo for Isaiah Pacheco?
Isaiah Pacheco, he might be a little banged up right now, but he's not on PUP. But I think he's going to smash. I'm going to take Pacheco because I'm not a huge Mingo believer.
Same here. Yeah, I received this offer. If the other team had anything else I cared about, I might try to put together a package of Mingo plus something and move on from Pacheco because
the fate of Pacheco. Yeah, but we all know like when he was drafted, we know the history behind these guys, and sometimes they last, sometimes they don't.
If he gets injured, Deneric Prince all of a sudden could be something this year. So I'm not putting my eggs in the Pacheco basket really and trying to ride with it, you know.
No, but I think you could get more for Pacheco than Mingo. So.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, definitely didn't. Yeah, I didn't do that. Don't worry. But yeah, we're talking about. Okay. This last one, was this you?
This last one's me. Yeah. So I think we have the same trade partner here who's trying to off Geno Smith in a second. So he's like, hey,
that's why he told me he wants to wait.
Yeah, he's like, hey, so does Geno in a second, does that do anything for a running back? And I was like, I'm thinking about it. I was like, man, looking at my roster, that's just what I told you. I'm like, do I need a quarterback? If I need a quarterback, then maybe, because I have a lot of running backs. Do I need a quarterback? If I do, then like maybe I can work something out here. But I have Joe Burrow, Kenny Pickett, and Matt Stafford, and Carson Wentz if he plays. I think I'm pretty set at quarterback. I don't really need a Geno, but I want his 24 second. Like I'm trying to get those. So I was just going to ask you, out of all these running backs, this is awkward because we're trading with the
No. I like this. I'm going to be honest. I always am. Right. I like this.
So out of these running backs, are there any ones that you think Geno in a second makes sense? I have Nick Chubb, Dobbins.
Can't trade that.
Let's see. What other ones would make sense? Gus Edwards, David Montgomery, Pacheco, or DeAndre Swift?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to move. Like, you can't. The Chubb for that obviously doesn't make sense.
No.
Who is the second one that you had there?
Dobbins.
J.K. Dobbins.
That doesn't make any sense to me either.
I don't want to do it, and I don't think he would do it, to be honest with you. But I wouldn't want to get rid of him like J.K. Dobbins, but I don't know if he would do it anyway. personally, I'm a lot like I think J.K. Dobbins. Who did I have this conversation with? I think he's a lot higher than his current ADP and his current value is one way or another. So I think maybe packaging like Pacheco and Montgomery may be like your best way to do it if you don't want to give up one of those top guys. But if you don't like Dobbins as much as I do, then that's potential there probably.
Yeah, I don't see any room for Geno on my roster, so that's kind of the hard
Yeah,
thing.
it's also for you specifically, and I mean, you may think of this differently, but it is the idea of like, when are you going to play him? Do you want to stream your quarterbacks like that? You know what I mean? Are you into streaming your quarterback too? Because in that case, then you have 3 viable options to do that.
Yeah.
I don't personally think that like, I don't think we're great at picking out the places that they're going to do well. So it's like,
no,
I don't know.
I have 3, decent quarterbacks. Pickett's probably the least of them, but I don't see any room for Geno. I still want in second. I might still try to work something out, but
I also think people are lower on Kenny Pickett too. I think Kenny Pickett could have a much better career than they're giving him credit for. He looked fine to me last year. I'm not saying he's going to, blow the doors off or anything like that, but I think he's going to be just fine. So
he had a decent rookie year, and he's in a really good team. So
exactly. The last thing I wanted to say about this was you're so concerned about, if I had 2 quarterbacks and I needed to solidify that third or that second spot. Like the league that this is in, I have Dak Prescott and Jimmy G. I'm not that concerned. No, and I'm not that concerned. I'm just like, you know what? It'll be fine. Like this will be just fine. Like if you don't want to do this trade, like so be it, man. Like I'll manage through it. But yeah, no, I should probably feel more like urgency to do it. But I think that, with my team the way it is in this league, it's as strong a contender as you can get, and it is old, but like all the pieces are likely going to be really good this year. And if Geno's not what he was last year, it would look really bad. You know what I mean? Yeah. If he just falls on his face, it would look terrible. Like you give up Eckler for a nothing quarterback in a second. So there's a lot of risk there. I think we're talking about it more than Ben, our trade partner, is giving credit for, I think, at least for me, in terms of Eckler. I don't think Eckler is getting as much credit. Or I'm sorry, not Eckler. I don't think Geno is being looked at as risky of an asset as he potentially can be.
Yeah. On the flip side, Eckler, the age.
Totally. Both of them are high risk assets for sure. One of them, I think, has been a much more stable fantasy producer in the NFL than the other.
Oh yeah.
And if you don't need the quarterback and you need the running back, there's Jacob Sanderson has been talking a lot about comparative advantage. It's like an economic term, but that's kind of what that just made me think of. The fact that trading a quarterback away and not getting one back, like intuitively, you're like, that doesn't make sense. But it's like, if your team has a lot of quarterbacks and you need a running back and you're not going to use the points from that quarterback, like it makes a lot of sense. Like that trade, you know what I mean? That it balances things out. And that's kind of in a very, very dumbed down way, kind of what comparative advantage is. I want to talk about that, I think, a little bit more during this offseason, because it's a great concept that I hadn't really discovered, and I think probably our listeners don't know a bunch about. But if you want more on that and where I got it from, 100% Jacob Sanderson, like genius.
He's sharp.
Super sharp. But yeah, so interesting trades. Those are super interesting ones, man. I don't know what to do. Like I don't know how to make it right. And now Ben is playing hardball with me because he had another trade partner. He's really tough, and so am I, dude. He obviously that's a fair enough trade for Eckler for Geno and a second is certainly a fair enough trade. It is, but I feel like I need insurance on top of it. You know what I mean? And he might feel that I'm being a dick because of it. So that's okay. I'm sorry.
Cheeky of him to like, I'm not sorry. Hey, you know what? I'm gonna pit these two together. They're gonna find out that I've been reaching out to both of them and just watch
cheeky bastard. He's gonna watch the Chaos live stream. Yeah, I love that. Thanks, Ben. Big shout out, Ben. He's a great commissioner, great dynasty player. So much fun to have in the league. So big shout out and love these kind of these trade conversations. They're tough, man. Like, and those are the best ones, like where you're like battling for every inch on both sides, playing tug of war and seeing who's gonna give. Like, am I gonna throw in a little pick to get this done? Is he gonna come back with a counter? Yeah, it's just how it goes. It's fun.
Yep. All right. Anything else you want to talk about?
No, man, I've talked my head off today. Thanks for tolerating me, per usual.
No, you do good.
I saw your face a couple of times. You're like, dude, shut the hell up. No. Like, I'm ready to go to the next topic.
I got a lot on my mind. Well, thanks for giving us a listen. Check us out on Twitter, Dynasty Underdog. You're at Uriah Dawkins, at Willie Beam DFF, and join our Discord. Listen to us on Spotify if you can.
Absolutely. Yeah, you covered it all, man. Professional. Let's go. Peace out.
Peace out, guys.